Today, it's my great pleasure to welcome Dr. Eric Holsapple to the show. He has a storied career, mainly in commercial real estate development professionally, but has a PhD in economics and has been a yoga practitioner for over 30 years now. And he brings that kind of presence of mind, specifically, Profits Through Presence is his book, and he brings that to the world of commerce and the world of working in teams and the world of career management and understanding how we get stressed and how we can perhaps limit that and become really more able to form connections. And so he's kind of speaking the language of what we talk about in the Eye of Power a lot. So I'm very much happy to welcome Eric Holsapple to the show today. Welcome to the Eye of Power podcast. I'm your host, Tom Dardick. But this podcast is not about me. It's about you and your power. It's time to claim yours. So welcome, Eric. Appreciate you being on the show with me today.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. We've got a couple things that are in common. You have a PhD. I just got a bachelor's in economics,
Yeah.
and you're also a 30-year yoga practitioner. I'm about a 3-year yoga practitioner.
Awesome.
So,
Awesome.
so we have a little bit of intersection, but I feel like I could probably learn from you on both those fronts. So,
Well, I don't know, but I'm just older. So you're probably coming.
yeah, well, hey, people say it sucks to get old, but it's preferable to the alternative.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
And the older I get, the more I start thinking about age just being a number.
Yeah.
It's just and yeah, I mean, systems are going to break down, and yes, the mortal coil is we're going to relieve oourselves of it sooner or later. And we don't necessarily know when that date is. Maybe some people do, but mostly we don't. But how we go along that path there's some things we can't control, and there's some things we can, and might as well focus on the things we can and not worry about the things we can't. Right?
Sounds very smart. I agree with you.
So let's dive in. So you're in Colorado right now. You said you're going to head to Maine pretty soon.
Yeah, we have a summer. I'm from Maine, and we have a summer place there. So, uh, hoping to spend a good chunk of time on the lake this summer. So,
I'll tell you, that's on my bucket list is to spend time. I love the coast of Maine. I've been some of the lakes there. I lived in New England for many years, and
uh-huh.
the coast of Maine is just
Yeah, it's beautiful. I was raised on a lake. I like to water ski and those
oh
kind
yeah.
of things. So I'm a lake guy. But yeah, we make some trips to the coast, and the seafood's amazing. So it's great.
Oh,
Can't wait.
absolutely.
Can't wait.
Yep. Lakes are fabulous. For many years we did extended family. We'd get a big lake house, rent it, and be
Yeah,
there. We were in
exactly.
Winnipesaukee, and not so much in Maine, but that's those are
Yeah,
again, you like skiing and fishing and just lake life. It's wonderful. It's so peaceful.
we'll have about our 45th Holsapple annual reunion. So we'll have a reunion and all that stuff. It's fun.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, and when are you going? The few weeks you're leaving? He said
After Memorial Day, I hope to.
after Memorial Day.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Yep. Yep.
enjoy it. All right, so let's get into your area of expertise. You have a method, I assume a book, Living in the Gap.
Books Profit with Presence. And the Living in the
Okay,
Gap's my nonprofit and a leadership group that I run.
okay.
Yep.
Profit with Presence. Okay, sorry, I got
Yep.
that wrong.
That's all right.
And so profit with presence would, to me, if I hear that, the uninitiated, I would think, okay, being present is actually something that serves other people in a way that leads towards win-win outcomes that lead toward profits. Am I reading that sort of correctly?
Yeah, that would be one way to describe it. I just found as yoga was my first entry into mindfulness. That's so I've been doing that and meditating for years just on my own, but I just found that in the business community, mindfulness is woo woo. And for so many people in the mindfulness community, like money is dirty, and I've just found that neither is true.
Oh, I like
That
that.
that we have to be able to make money in a capitalist society. There's nothing wrong with it, but there's ways to do it. And, to do things with purpose and to giving back and being of integrity and of your word and listening to people is just a great way, a great business model. And basically it's presence or focus, and to be able to focus on what we choose to focus on during the day at work, and then turn that off, turn our phone off, turn our screens off, and focus on our family at night, or weekends, or whatever it is for an individual. But to be able to train that focus, to focus on who we're with.
What happens? So you would think, well, we're all present because no matter where you go, there you are, and you're doing something, right? So what gets in the way from what you've seen? How do people get out of presence?
Well, I mean, businesses, we're experts in grabbing people's attention, right? All the slices of their attention. It used to be, I remember, at college years ago and learning about the subtle advertising cues. Well, they're not subtle anymore. They're it's coming at you every angle, every minute, from your social media feeds to TV to, everything is trying to grab slices of our attention, and it has a real cost. I mean, look at the stress levels that we have, and we're a distracted nation. We're distracted people, and I find that that's where our stress and anxiety comes from. So much is that we're not really truly present to anything. That we've got all these slices of our attention at different places. Or I'm at a meeting at work, and people's screens are open, and they're taking calls and they're texting, and nothing gets done. But if we can just say, okay, let's have a meeting which is half the time, but let's really focus on it. If you got to go make a call, go make it, but we're going to just focus on this issue now, and things just happen so much faster and so much easier. Or when you're, I mean, you ever talk to somebody and have them be checking their phone? I mean, nothing. You're not heard. We're not
Right.
really listening to people. We're preparing to respond, or we're just being there. But to actually really set things aside and really listen is much more efficient, and it makes the person feel heard, and it's true communication. So more gets done in less time. Uh, we can't be everywhere all at once. There was a movie of that name. I think it was they just everywhere all at once all the time or something. We can't be. It's just not how we're designed. You know.
Yeah. Well, we all have we're beings of limited perceptive power. And when we try, but we try, right? We have these
Oh,
illusions,
you do. Yeah.
right? People say I'm a fantastic multitasker. So, when I get pulled, if you talk to somebody about doing these multiple things at the same time, they say, "Oh no, I can handle this." And most of the time, at least I've seen the studies I've seen, they're fooling themselves, right? Because when it's studied, when things are measured, it's never superior, right?
Yeah,
it
and
always
our consciousness is jumping from one thing to another. It's
right. That
not,
doesn't.
I found you can have a broad awareness and a specific thing. You can be broadly aware of your environment and specifically focused on something. But as far as, even driving, and then you get down to the radio, you catch yourself all of a sudden, I'm in the radio, I'm not on the road or on my phone, I'm not, we think we're in those things, but in our body systems can operate a lot of things, but we're not truly focused on them.
Yeah.
So we are kidding ourselves to a certain degree, and also I find just people are so stressed. I mean, and COVID brought it it magnified it even more. But people are just so stressed, and I think that's a lot of it is we aren't deeply focused on anything. We're superficially or multi-focused on so many things. And being present, living in the gap you mentioned is the nonprofit. It's a gap between thoughts, is where peace and joy and happiness resides. It's not in thought. It's not what happens to us in the world. It's what we think about it.
Hmm.
We're, as you mentioned, death earlier. We're all going to die. That's not a problem.
Hmm.
But what do we think? It's what we think about it, how we stress about it. I mean, things happen. Like we stress about the weather. We stress about so many things we have, beyond our our control. rather than accepting them, and it causes stress. So many things. So it's really worthwhile looking at that and saying, geez, am I really accomplishing more? My experience is you aren't. That we aren't accomplishing more, that we're stressing ourselves out and we're living by society's rules. And it's the only one that can take back your attention is you. The only
Yeah.
one, business's job is, I try to do it, is to grab people's attention. That's our job, and we're really good at it.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
only hope is to say, no, I'm going to get these apps off my phone. It's not going to be everything, you know, uh, I'm going to limit, what I'm doing, emails, and, I'm going to try to really pay attention to what I'm doing and who I'm with.
Yeah, so there's a bunch there we can dive into. One thing I was thinking about as you're speaking, Eric, is uh, the concept of stress and its causes. I've heard people talk about stress being attachment to outcome.
Yeah.
Um, how do you look at stress? Well, when you think of stress, and I've also heard the concept of good stress and bad stress. I'm not sure there is good stress, but some people say there is, and so I just want to get your view of the
Well,
causes and the nature of what we mean when we use the word stress.
attaching to outcome, right, is not being present, because I can't be attached to what's going to happen at a future event and be present at the same time. So anytime I'm in thought, I'm not present. And I'm not saying there aren't times that we need to be thinking and contemplating and calculating. All those things are necessary sometimes, but to know and be conscious about it, and uh, is quite beneficial. So I find that when we're actually in the zone, most of us have something. For me, it's snow skiing. For my wife, it's painting. For some people, it's fly fishing or woodworking. Have something in which we're totally immersed in what we're doing.
Yeah.
And those are the tree. And like I take a walk in the morning. I had a beautiful walk in nature this morning, just, totally engulfed in it. And I saw a deer and an elk, and, it was a great time. I was really there. Right. Um, Being totally there is not stressful, even if it's an apparent stressful situation, like they find after accidents, right? Some people find that they're more present than ever, that something happened and that boom, they're there. But then we start thinking about what happened or what we're supposed to be doing or those kind of things, and then stress leads in. So, like in business context, we have results, right? We need to make a profit. So I look at I look at financial statements on a monthly basis. I go through everything, and then I say, okay, here's the things that I need to do this month. I look at cash on a weekly basis. Here's what the cash is, and I look at strategy about quarterly. But in between those times, I let it go, and I say, okay, no, now I'm in action mode. I'm going to be present and carrying forward those things, and I'll visit it again next week or next month or next quarter, what I've said I'm going to do. But if I'm constant, and I'm not saying the results won't pop up for me, just like if I'm in a golf game, the result pops up for me, but I got to let it go and come back to focus on the moment. So the thought comes in, I go, no, not now. I'm talking. I'm here with this person.
That
So
makes sense.
that, and by letting that go, I think performance improves because I can be truly with what I'm doing versus if I think profit is totally necessary for business, but it's not the purpose, it's not the why of business. I got to be providing a service, and I've got to be present with the people that I'm working with, whether it be vendors or employees or the bankers or whoever it is. To be present with that at that time is my job at that time, and then yeah, it has to make a profit, but I can't be consumed by that result all the time. If I am, then I'm not really running the business.
That makes sense. As you were speaking about the nature of presence and that idea of being attached to outcome, even if you're present when you're fully engaged in the moment, even if that moment is something that is perhaps dangerous or something like that. It made me think of a couple experiences I had, Eric, where I had one. It was a motorcycle accident I had. I remember, um, and I just remember time coming to almost like a complete
Yeah.
standstill, where I was able to sense a whole bunch of stuff in the space. I mean, I know from the speed and the dynamics, it had to be, a second or less. It seemed like it was a super long time as I was sort of processing. And I had a similar thing when I was in a ski accident too. So in these moments of like, okay, and I don't know what pushed my brain into that mode, but it seemed like there was those moments of clarity where you had a snap, you
Yeah.
had a
Amazing. I
literally
mean,
just a microsecond of time where you had to make a decision about something. And it seemed like in the moment that it was easy because of that present. It seemed like that's what it was the presence element of it.
well, it
What do you
was
think about that? Those crisis moments or those, or,
totally.
yeah,
It's happened so fast that you can't think. You just do, and you're present.
yeah.
You know,
And
there isn't
but
a
our
problem. You're
perception,
acting.
yeah,
You're acting.
right.
You're right in it. You're doing it.
Our
So
brain shuts everything else out, right?
and that's the zone, right? Take another, in sporting events. That's
Yeah,
the zone. It's a longer, it isn't it, but that period of time when the inside world and the outside world melt together and you're just one with it, that's when people talk about the zone, whether, in a sporting event. And I always say, wouldn't it be great if we could have some moments like that at work?
yeah,
Could we bring that in that it's, that we actually could get in the zone or be present while we're working. And I don't think you can, I mean, we all have to do things we don't want to do and there's distractions and all that. But, could I have periods of time when that was evident at work? To me,
well, it's a
that
lot
is
more
beautiful.
fulfilling, right? Because when we're in those moments, whether it be zone or people call it flow out of
Exactly.
Cecilia Mihil, but when we're in those
I
moments,
can't pronounce his
yeah,
name either. It's
Mihaly
this long.
Csikszentmihalyi,
It's
whatever his
this
name is,
long.
yeah,
Brilliant work, but yes.
he's the flow guy, right?
Mhm.
But anyway, when we're in those moments, they're very joyful, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's a happy place to be because you're
Yes.
bringing your resources, you're bringing everything of yourself to that moment. It's
Yeah.
fulfilling, right?
And it's not as much what you're doing as the presence that you have while you're doing it. You can have that same thing doing a variety of different things, once you adapt yourself to it. So, I mean, and some things going to be easier if you're good at them and you know how to do them and
Yeah.
exactly. But it's that presence, flow, zone, more than just what we're doing.
So would you say it's the routine or the familiar when we sort of get into patterns and then maybe we sort of go on autopilot and then we start getting out of being present? I mean, I'm trying to sort of see what you see about the things that keep us on track and get us off track. I know you mentioned the pulls of the gravitational pull of the 10 or 20 or I don't know how many thousands of messages people are exposed to every day,
Yeah.
but there's that. But there's also something about how our brains work, right?
Well, it's getting to know what presence is and starting and having a practice that we realize when we're present and when we're not, and to try to keep coming back to being present. For instance, a routine, let's take meditation. Everybody doesn't have to meditate, but if you take that on, that's a mindfulness practice. Meditation, it's a routine that you're trying to do all the time. When James Clear wrote Atomic Habits, which is a brilliant book,
Mm.
what I love in there, he says, you have to get used to boredom. People that really are stars, that are masters at things, get used to that routine. But also, can you be present with that? Because the other thing that boredom does a lot of times is lets our mind surf, right? Lets our mind go off and somewhere else and not be there because it's a routine. But can we actually sit in meditation as a training for that? Because what could be more boring than just sitting there, right? Just without external stimuli, in a quiet place, just sitting. I did a little bit on my walk this morning. So, but the practice is starting to realize when you go away, and then just keep coming back. You go away and you just keep coming back. And over a long period of time, it's not that you never go away, it's that you start noticing sooner that you've gone away and you bring yourself back again.
That's yeah, I've experienced that too, and whether it be the breathing and yoga or whenever you're trying to get to that point of calm, um, it seems to me like kids are sort of easily bored. Like, I'm bored, mom. I'm bored, dad. Or
Yeah.
it seems like boredom is something that is perhaps natural to us, and to not be bored is something is maybe a skill we have to learn. How
Well,
do you?
we've actually in our culture have made that something that is undesirable,
Ah,
right? I mean, we're culture. I mean, the culture has just shaped us so much. I mean, one of the things I think you have to do is start realizing how much our purposes have been shaped by culture.
hmm.
It's basically buying more and doing more. Always it's more, more, more is what our culture gives us. Not more happiness, but more things. So we've actually been trained that boredom is not a good thing, but actually look how much happens when you allow a kid to get bored a little bit. It's fine. You don't have to have constant stimuli because we're training ourselves and training kids that, no, keep bringing the distractions because boredom's a bad thing. Turn on another layer, put on the iPhone and the game and the TV and some music, and talk to your friends all at once. Bring it on. We're not really doing anything. We're just doing everything. We've been trained to say boredom is, we shouldn't be bored. We have all these things. But actually boredom, really facing it down and accepting it a little and being with it, uh, can be very, very liberating. The constant simulation is not real.
Right.
So, and it takes a little bit. I mean, it's not comfortable at first. That's why so many people, I can't tell you how many I've introduced to meditation or have talked to them about it. They come and say, no, it's made me worse. It's made my mind go crazy. And I say, well, no, you were crazy all along. You never noticed. You hadn't really focused and looked at it. But when you look at it a little bit of time, it calms down.
Yeah.
What most people, the mistake they make, I think, is they try too long, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. We start people with like 2 minutes of meditation, or there's even a one breath meditation. It's just start slow. And as your mind calms down a little bit, you're more efficient, you have more time, but also you want a little more of it because that calmness is peace and joy and happiness. I mean, it's what happens in between thoughts, not thinking.
So it's being a human being instead of a human doing, is what they
Yeah.
often say,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
Well,
and
when you can't be in your head thinking and present really at the same time. Now you can be present to a thought. That's something, but that's not being present with you, right? It's hard to be present to multiple things at the same time. Doesn't mean we can't operate the radio and drive and smoke and have a drink and, do all those things, but we can't be present or consciously aware of all those things at the same time. It's just not humanly possible.
so when you talk about the profits through presence, is it the the discipline or the habit of allowing ourselves to be and have that presence that translates into greater connection, greater
Oh, yes.
creativity,
All of it.
greater consciousness, greater ability to act in the world because
Right.
we're open, we're not shut, we're not spending our energy spinning our like on the hamster wheel, right? When we get out of that, it leaves spaces. Help me understand
Well,
that
all of that you just said, plus we've been trained by culture that someday, if I do all the right things, right? I go to the right school, I get the right job, I marry the right person, I buy the right house, I take the right vacations, you know, someday I get to be happy. But
Mm,
it's always out there. when I get to the next thing. And what I've learned in my life and for a lot of the successful people, we just changed the goalposts. It used to, where at first it was a six-figure salary. If I could just get that, and if I could just get married, oh, if I could just, have a wife, and I could just have a house, and then it's, oh, the house is a little small. I need a bigger house, oh, and I got to have not a ski vacation, but I got to have a ski condo, you know, and Mexico, now I got to go to Hawaii. We just keep, or travel. It's, first I want to travel. Bus was kind of cumbersome. So I fly, and then, geez, if I could just sit up front, if I could just sit in first class, and that is, oh, if I flew private, if
Yeah.
I could just fly private. And then it's like, yeah, but these guys are going to the moon. We could just go to the moon. It's like we constantly move the goalposts, rather we flip it around. There's a guy named Sean Archer wrote The Happiness Advantage, a brilliant book. There's no, it's Copernicus said, the sun they always thought the sun revolved around the earth. No, the earth revolves around the sun. Success revolves around happiness, happy people. You're not saying you can't make money, because I've been around a lot of grouchy people that, make money and have money, but they're
Right.
not happy.
Right.
But if you get the happiness down
They thought
first,
money
and
was going to make them happy.
and they find that, okay, so I need to make more money. It must be more money that I need, or the trip that I haven't taken or something. But you have to bring happiness to your location. It's not the trip that makes you happy. It's being happy and taking that on the trip. So being happy and taking that into business. Who do you want to call? Somebody that's in a good mood, or somebody that's a grouch? It's just, now, obviously I want to call somebody that is competent and has what I want. But if you have both, that's who you're going to call. You're going to call the person that actually asks you how you're doing and takes a minute and say, knows you're on the phone. And I found I'm a real estate developer by trade, been through about 5 major downturns, including COVID. And I found the number one factor that gets me through downturns. You know what it is? You want to guess? Relationships.
Yeah.
Because transactional people don't call you back in a downturn. They won't. I mean, I'm not saying the relationship, somebody's going to buy something from you is going to say out, but they'll at least talk to you. They'll at
Right.
least tell you what's going on, or give you an idea of who you might call or why it doesn't work. But transactional people, you just won't get a call back.
Right.
But if you have a relationship with somebody, they have a relationship, you call them, you talk to them, you care about it. And you say, yeah, I can't do it, but here's what I see in that situation. Or they may take something to committee that somebody else wouldn't, or, but it's a huge factor in business. There's a Forbes article recently that said number one factor in long-term business success is relationships. So, and
Yeah,
that's
that's a
probably with
theme.
presidents, putting the relationships ahead of the transaction. The
Well,
transactions still happen, but having a relationship with somebody is really important.
the thing I found over the course of working with people on, trying to make changes and so forth is we don't change for intellectual reasons, right? We change for emotional reasons. And so what are those emotions? Well, since we're social creatures, they really are about how we are connecting with other people.
Hmm.
So it seems to me like that is the currency, is our relationships and um, our perception of what they are, what they mean. What when we're transactional, they're reduction, right? We're saying, oh, I value that person because they can deliver this skill, or I value this person because they will give me this when I need it. And if that's your calculus, and if that's, say, a large percentage of your calculus, that's perhaps not as strong a tether as really honestly caring about that person, wanting the
Exactly.
best for them and wanting
Exactly.
to serve them in a way that furthers their life trajectory.
And still realizing I have a business to run, and
Yeah,
things have to happen, people have to
sure.
show up, and things have to happen, and I'm a leader, so I can make hard decisions, but I can make hard decisions with compassion
Yeah,
and communication, and all those things. Doesn't mean I never lay anybody off or that I buy things that I don't need. None of that. It just
right.
means I care. It's called compassion. I care about it. Harvard did a 70-year long study recently found that the number one, I think there were 800 some participants, the number one factor in long-term happiness was relationships and
Yeah.
long-term relationships. They even found it reduced stress because you had someone to talk to, you know. Relationships is a huge, I mean, we're relating, we're connecting creatures. We need to connect.
Yeah.
Different
Yeah.
people need to connect at different levels as introverts and extroverts and all those kind of things. But basically humans, we're creatures of connection, and relationships is at the core of what makes us happy, whether rich, poor, whatever. Being rich without relationships is a lonely road.
Yeah. And it seems also that that habit of presence, or that place of presence, or discipline, or skill, or I don't know, however you want to frame the phenomenon of being present, seems like that's very good for relationships because, like you
Oh,
pointed to earlier, Eric, it's you're actively listening, you're connected with you're there for them in that moment, and that's very healthy for relationships, right?
listening is the key to relationships, I think. I mean, that's the biggest gift you can give another human being, is to actually listen to them.
Yeah.
Whether doesn't mean you have to agree with them, you know, but to listen to them and get what they're saying. Just think about where we'd be differently in the world today with our political discussions and discourse and, disparities, if we could just set, responding aside for a little bit and just listen and say, well, I mean, half the world thinks differently than me, or half the Americans, what's going on with them? Could we just
Yeah.
listen to somebody, without the judgments? And the problem with judgments is that stops the listening. When you
Right.
judge something and you label them, you automatically know about all there is to know about that person. You put them in you just put them in a category, right? We all do it, but in mindfulness, what you do is notice that you're judging and set it aside. Okay, well, let's
Yeah.
set that aside and still listen. Let's set that aside and still, and it's very quick, it's efficient. Sometimes we need it. We don't have time to, do everything. And our judgments save us. But other times they just really limit. They limit
Yeah.
what's possible because we don't know everything about another person. We
That's
don't
right.
know all that. And it doesn't mean I have to agree with them, or I have to do what they say, or I have to vote with them, or I have to hire them or anything. It just means, could I listen to them and just say, yeah, I got it.
Yeah, if you look right here in this in the
Yeah.
model, you can't
Yeah.
see the words, but um, you're talking about a dynamic that I call in the people quadrant, which is our attitude towards other people, and the limiting factor there
Perfect.
is I use the word condemnation to be a little bit more specific than judgment, because
I
judgment
love
is
that. I love that.
yeah. Judgment is something like, if you have values, you kind of have to judge, right? I think
Yeah.
this is better than that. And there's not anything necessarily wrong with that. But what you're pointing to, that the problem is condemnation, where you're saying,
Yeah.
okay, I don't like that, and I'm dismissing, pushing away,
Yeah.
disregarding, setting it aside, that I don't have to think about it anymore. And that's the trap, right? Because now I'm
Yeah.
shut down.
And some of that's have to, because there's so much stuff out there and I got to act. I mean, I
That's right.
have to cut through it and do it, but
That's right.
recognize that it's being aware of what you're doing. Okay.
Yeah.
I have to make the judgment now. Today's my last day. This is what I'm doing,
Yeah.
or if it's a quick thing, but generally, how limiting that is, how limiting is, because we can't possibly know everything there is to know about another human being
That's right.
any more than they can know everything, about me. Just
Not
can't.
and not only that, the extension of that, Eric, is that because of that, you have to also recognize that they know things and experience things and see things in ways that you don't. And
Yeah.
if you want to expand your view of the world, improve your model of how you navigate through life, it's very handy to have the ability to take into account uh, what others see, so that you can learn and grow and be
Yeah.
advantaged by the things that they learned that you didn't have to learn the hard way.
Yeah. One of the reasons I've been successful in business is that I'll ask for things, but I know what people say doesn't have anything to do with me. People say yes, no, or maybe, and it has to do with their situation,
Yeah.
you know? I may judge, oh, they said no because they don't like me, or they say no because they're, they don't know what they're talking about, or they say no because I don't know everything that's going on with another person. They may
Absolutely.
have a world of things going on that I don't know about that, isn't, especially business people. I mean, we're trained to not have people know what's going on with us. We're playing poker every day, you know? So how could I possibly know? So, but if I'm willing to ask, I see the key to that is being willing to hear no, to really listen when someone says no. Got it. Let's have lunch. Not, oh, but did you see? It's, I heard you. No. Great. People don't mind being asked if you hear no.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of power in that because it's clarifying, right?
Yeah.
The
Got it.
worst part's the maybe, right? That's like a yes and a
It's
no.
true
Those are
sometimes.
good. The thing in between is where the most of the
Yeah.
trouble is.
Yeah. Yeah. The lack of clarity around it. Sometimes it's real and that's fine. All right. What would make the difference? What would make the difference for you if it would make a yes or no? Could you tell me that? Okay. But the lack of clarity sometimes, yeah, it can be the most frustrating. But sometimes it's real, right? They don't know. So that's fine.
Yeah. So you pointed earlier a little bit towards perhaps how you contribute to other people as it relates to this dynamic, Eric, where you said, you'll guide them for like teach them meditation in very short, maybe just as the length of a
Yeah.
single breath. And then that's a muscle just like anything else that can be built over time.
Mhm.
What are some of the other things that you do to contribute to somebody's ability to be present and to
Yeah.
the ability to move forward in the way we're
Yeah.
talking?
Well, I have 12 pillars of mindful leadership. The number one is to be present and practice mindfulness. It is a practice like anything. There's nobody that does anything worthwhile from art to sport to business that doesn't take some practice. So it does take some practice, less than most people think, like 10 minutes a day to start, usually, a couple of meditation, a couple other things. Number two is to identify your purpose in life. What is it that makes you tick? Why are you here? I taught at business school at Colorado State for 20 years and mostly seniors in real estate. And time again, they'd be in, towards that. I was working mostly out of the university and teaching a class most of the time. So I had contacts and I could help, place them both in where I thought they might be good at and and specific places. And I say, why are you here? What are you doing? What do you want to do? Most of it was, I don't know why. I'm here because mom and dad said business or engineering and they'd pay for it, because they're, we're worried about our kids' survival. If they don't study the right things and get the right job, they're going to starve to death. And I tell the advice was, hey, spend a little time. What happens from here is you get the job, you meet the girl or the boy, you buy the house, you get the mortgage, you have the kids, you wake up and you're 50. It's just hard to get off that treadmill once you get those commitments. Again, I said it might be worth a little bit of time, and mom and dad will be okay. You can say, thanks for getting me this far. I got the ball. Let me, this next step's mine, you know, and take a little bit of time just diving into why are you here on earth? What makes you tick? What difference do you want to make? What do you want to do? Who do you want to be? So spending some time in that area is finding out what your purpose is, and then from there, and also know really clearly distinguishing what culture's purpose is for us. And mostly, it's to make things and produce things and consume things. The more, the better. And there's nothing wrong with any of it. I like it all, but it's not purpose. It isn't what makes me tick. I love going on trips. I love skiing. I love doing things. I like houses. I like it all, but it's not my purpose. And then we set a clear vision from, the first three pillars are the primary ones, is create a vision for your life, that you want from that, and live into it, learn to live into it through your habits, your intentions. You are your habits. So,
Mhm.
but learn what you want to be, and then get rid of the habits that are taking me away from that, and learn over time. It's a process. How do I hone the habits a little bit at a time to be the person that I want to be? Because I am my habits. That's what's happening no matter how much I want to be conscious and aware, studies are 95% of the time I'm not. I'm just taking the next habitual action. So I want that habitual action to be working towards my goals that I set.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want that habitual action to be something that is making me healthier, making me happier. If it's a business goal, making me wealthier, whatever it is, I want that rather than a sabotaging act. That is, I say I want to do this, but all my actions are there or this other way. That's when I don't, it's frustrating and I don't understand why this is happening, why I constantly thwart it, or, I want to get on the honor roll, but, I'm out at happy hour on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday nights. How come I can't get on the honor roll? Well, it's hard to study drunk, you
Well,
know?
well, we're incongruent in those cases, right? We're
Yes,
parts of us are
exactly.
pulling in one direction, the other part's
Yeah.
pulling in another. They're not going to be mutually compatible, so something's
So
going to give.
commitment and habits are need to be aligned. If I have commitments that are out of line with my habits, it's hard for me to keep my commitments. But if
Yeah.
I can align my habits and my commitments together, I got a chance. And then, I fall off it, I get sick, or I take a vacation or something, I get fall off it for some reason. My commitment gets me back on the horse, gets me back in my habits. Or, something happens, I lose my commitment for a little bit, my habits are what's gonna hold me for a period of time. But if those are not in line, it's really hard to be productive in the way that you wanna be and as happy as you can be. But if you can get clarity, commitment, vision, and intentions, habits all lined up, man, you can be a force. Things can happen, you know?
I love it. Yeah, I mean, that's it right there. That process, the whole picture there does describe our agency. It's the things we can do, right?
Yeah,
And we don't waste energy or cause undue stress focusing on the things that we can't control, which is usually what other people do and think, right?
yeah. Which
Whatever
we
else.
think we know, but we really don't know what they're
Exactly
thinking,
right. You have
you
no
know?
idea. You don't even know what you are, much less somebody else's.
Very, very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a process, it takes a little bit of time. The program we run is 9 months and it's a start.
Okay.
It's a process of, it's taken a long time to get to be who we are. And a lot of that time, like the super time is between 0 and 7 when we're really downloading everything unconsciously from our environment, so it's taken a long time to get how we are.
Sure.
So
Absolutely.
to take some clarity around how we are and recognize our habits, with some of the habits, for me, when I got in, I wasn't even aware of some of the habits I had, some of the mannerisms and different things I was doing that I just didn't even know. And then you
Right.
gain some awareness around it. And you go, wow. And then you got a chance. Then you start saying, oh, well, I don't want to be that way.
The
So then you
habits are
start
wonderful
working on it.
they're wonderful servants and horrible masters.
Yeah. And they're who we are.
Yeah,
We are our habits. We're habitual creatures.
that's right. Yeah.
So start looking at those things, and you can change them. And it's as easy to do something good for you and that you want to do once you formed a habit as it is to do the other. But
Yeah.
initially, it's not. But so it takes some work and some commitment to get started. But once you get those habits, then that's the momentum. That's where the grooves are, right? We want to go, we're easier where the groove is. So the grooves we've set. So we've got to set some grooves that are as deep as the ones that we've had.
Yeah.
And then with awareness, we recognize, oh, I fell back into an old groove. Okay,
Yep.
I got to get out of it.
Yep.
And I always say a sense of humor helps with that more than anything. Rather than beating myself up and judging myself, it's just, oh, geez, there I go again.
I
Oh,
love
darn.
that. That's that
You know?
because that is because the stakes are high. We at least best we can tell we get a single journey. Might not be the deeper
Yeah.
truth, but that's what it
Yep.
looks like.
Yep.
And so we feel like the stakes are super high, and when the stakes are high, then here comes the stress and worry, and out goes that lightness and that humor that you just pointed to, Eric, and the idea of discover, play, enjoy, explore,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
mean, that's sort of no matter what our purpose is, those elements are part of it, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Sense of humor is key.
Really is. It
Yeah.
makes it a lot more fun anyway, at very minimum.
Well, the one we're hardest on is ourselves usually. We think we judge others, and we do, but we do the same thing to ourselves, and to start noticing how
Yeah.
we're talking to ourselves.
Yeah.
what we're saying to ourselves. And then we say, oh, am I talking to my kids that way? Oh, well, geez, that's what they're hearing. They say, I can't remember. It's something like the kids hear 5,000 no's to every, 50 yeses or something. It's just,
Wow.
you're raised with this culture of no, 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 don't, bad, 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 you know,
Corrective. We're
all the
corrective and
time.
we're corrective and remedial rather than being encouraging and proactive
And then
and
we ask, why,
exploratory.
why won't he take any chances? Why? Oh, because he's not been rewarded for, stepping out and doing some, things. So yeah,
Oh man,
so that's where mindfulness or awareness comes in. You just start noticing what you're saying to yourself and to
yeah,
others, because I maintain that we normally don't. We don't really pay attention. We're just robots, saying the things, uh, and getting whatever reward system that we've had for it. But there is a better way when you start with awareness and being very intentional about your words, intentional about how you talk to yourself, training yourself how you talk to yourself and how you talk to others, because you're listening too.
yeah, absolutely. Well, it seems to me like that. Oh, I mean, it's fear-based, right? The fear of mistakes, the fear of looking bad, the fear of being rejected. I mean, that that kills that playfulness, that spirit that we were talking about judging earlier. Um, all of that seems to be one of the major chokeholds on effectiveness and creativity and really the higher levels of human organization that is based on mutual respect and trust. Um, we erode it with all that fear of those fears that creep in because of the conditioning you were pointing to, right?
We got time for one more area on
Please,
that.
please.
Acceptance, you
Ah,
know, acceptance of ourselves and others. Now, first of all, if we hire in a hiring situation and somebody gets through probation, and if we think they're the best person that's on the job and whatnot that there is, and they make a mistake, can we accept it? You know, and I also think, as it was true for me and so many people I work with, we're so hard to accept ourselves. We're not quite right. We've got this vision of it, and a lot of that comes from just like that time from 0 to 7 or ever that we've heard so much negativity. We got it at home, and then, oh, classmates, aren't they wonderful? Don't they just say nice things to me all day long? No, I don't get all the positive reinforcements, and I've brought it all on.
yeah,
I've heard it all. And so I subconsciously really still have a lot of negative things. Regardless of how successful you are, you still got these things that you're wearing. So to really bust through that and say, you know what? I accept you. I accept myself and I accept you. And obviously, if I'm out there working and somebody's not doing the job, then I'm not going to accept that.
sure.
But generally, we're imperfect creatures. We all make mistakes. We work together to fix them. What a liberating thing it was at work when I started accepting people, as being, I knew they're the best in the field, rather than chiding them, saying, yeah, but okay, what are we going to do to fix it? How are we going to get at that? What a liberating that thing is. People then will really try. They're really stretched because they're not afraid to make a mistake.
Yeah,
But how limiting it is if you're all the time worried about the mistake. It just limits how successful that you can really be. And the same with yourself. Can you stretch
yeah,
yourself? And I mean, as an entrepreneur, I can tell you I've learned more and made more money from failures, than, you know, good markets scare me. I only go on one way for them to go, the other direction, you
that's
know.
right.
But so many times, if you get that way and you look at a mistake, go, yeah, but where's the opportunity in it?
Yeah,
What's next? I know there's something in this is good. As you start learning that, anybody successful will tell you how many mistakes that they've made and what they've learned from it. And if you start turning those into positives, then the game begins.
yeah,
Then
absolutely.
the game begins of what's really possible.
That's fantastic stuff. I love where you're coming from, Eric. Now, for somebody listening to us and really, eating up what you're saying there, want to be more present, want to bring this kind of spirit and approach to their life, to their business. How do you guide them? What should they do?
Well, they can go to our website, livinginthegap.org. There's free resources of learn how to start a mindfulness practice. There's a list of introductory books. There's introductory practices there. The book Profit with Presence is a summary of a pretty intense program that we take on over a period of 9 months. It's available on Amazon or the website. Profit with Presence: the 12 Pillars of Mindful Leadership. But first thing I'd say is get started with something. Doesn't have to be through living in the gap or profit with presence. Get started with something which improves your awareness. And if you're going to do one thing, just be grateful. Practice some gratitude every day. It changes your mindset. Doesn't have to be meditation, but just look around and just say, gosh, how did I get born? Why was I born? Out of all the possible eggs that were out there, how did I get born? And
Mhm.
how did I get born in America or wherever it is that you are? And how did I get this family? And how could you just be grateful for a few things each day? Possibly write them down if that works. If not, whatever works. But just that mindset change alone, if you're just going to do one thing, is a great place to start.
I've heard it said that gratitude is next door neighbors with abundance, and and that's
Well, you look when you're grateful, you look for things differently. You look for things to be grateful for. If
yeah,
you leave the house sour every day, you're more likely to see those things
yeah,
because
yeah.
we are so much creating what we find.
That's right. And it's
Uh,
funny as time goes on, the sciences of perception and physics and everything as they advance,
it's
we're
crazy.
finding more and more that those ancient truths are actually more and more true. Starting
They're
to
true.
see that fact, that we do create our
Oh,
realities in a big way like that. So
I've read, so many of those Eastern texts is how I got started, and it blows you away. And one reason is look at the time that they had just to think and study and contemplate
yeah,
about things and just to be that now, we can't have a minute. Can you imagine? Oh, I think I'll go stargaze this weekend. Oh, yeah. You know, we have to have, it's the movie to this, to that, to the sporting event, to this, boom. They would just sat and watch the stars, and would whatever, or hunt and gather or whatever. And now we don't. So what they came up with, it isn't as amazing when you think about how much time they had without all the distractions.
yeah, yeah,
So it isn't, I mean, if we can wedge in 10 minutes or 20 minutes or, whatever it is a day to just be in that and create some space, I think we can find that
yeah.
time.
Well, and we also think of the modern, let's just say the world propelled by widespread electricity. Um, that's a blink of an eye as it relates to human history. So we think of ourselves sometimes as so advanced and knowledgeable. And um, I heard it said recently, I've said this a few times in some interviews because it just stands out so much, is intelligence is knowledge about that which changes. And yeah, we are getting very intelligent. We are learning a lot about things that are
Mhm.
changeable. Wisdom is knowledge about that which doesn't change. And so
Yeah.
that's the thing that you're pointing to is, or knowledge about the things that don't change. And maybe we need a little bit more attention and effort put
Yeah.
on that. That
I
might
love
help
that.
us.
I love that. That's great.
Yeah. Well, Eric, thank you so much. I've enjoyed our conversation very much. I think you've shared a lot of wisdom with our audience, and for that, I thank you so much.
You're welcome. I really appreciate being on.
My pleasure. Thank you, Eric, for being my guest today. I loved everything you put down there. Very compatible with what we talk about in the Eye of Power community. The idea of presence, the idea of it being a practice and a discipline, the idea of being um, available for other people and valuing relationships, the idea of not being connected to outcomes in order to, not be so stressed. We're so stressed with all the things that pull us in various directions. It's an easy way to fall in. And then you also stressed, of course, the power of habit. And as I said while we were talking, habits are fantastic servants and tyrannical masters. And so the effort that we can put forward to make sure we have um, habits that serve us and others, and we do away with the habits that no longer serve us or others, is really one of the better places we can put our energy and our attention. So thank you very much, Eric, for that. And thank you very much for listening to our discussion today. This has been the Eye of Power podcast with Tom Dardick. I'd like to thank you for listening. I'd also like to thank my brother, Scott Dardick, for the music and his music production. If you'd like to reach me, simply email Tom at dardickcommunications.com.